You just crossed $100,000 maybe. You checked your accounts on a random Tuesday and the number was sitting there, 6 figures, staring back at you. And you felt 2 things simultaneously. The first was pride, real, earned pride, because getting to $100,000 was hard. It took years. It required sacrifice, discipline, and more patience than you thought you had. The second feeling was quieter but heavier. Exhaustion. Because if $100,000 took that long and that much effort, you're now looking at $1 million and thinking, that's 10 times further away. I can't do this 9 more times. Here's what I need you to hear. You don't have to do it 9 more times. You don't even have to do it 3 more times, because the math after $100,000 works differently than the math before it. And the difference is so dramatic, so counterintuitive, and so thoroughly in your favor that when you see the actual numbers, you're going to wonder why nobody told you this sooner. The path from $0 to $100,000 is the hardest stretch in all of wealth building. You did the hardest part. The path from $100,000 to $1 million. It's not 10 times longer. With continued contributions, it's roughly the same length. And with the compounding math working at full power, it might actually feel easier. That's not motivation. That's arithmetic. And the arithmetic is about to change your entire perspective. My name is Max, and I want to help you learn how to make your money work more for you in your life. This channel is about understanding the real math behind wealth building. Not the simplified version, but the actual calculations that show you why the journey accelerates when everyone expects it to slow down. If you've crossed $100,000 or you're on your way, subscribe, because what I'm about to show you is the most important math lesson in personal finance. So here's the conventional belief. Building wealth is a linear process. Each $100,000 takes about the same effort as the last. And that belief is devastating because it makes the goal feel impossibly far away. If $100,000 took you 7 years, then $1 million must take 70 years, right? You'd be 95 years old. What's the point? But wealth building isn't linear. It's exponential. And in an exponential system, the beginning is the slowest part and the end is the fastest part. The first $100,000 is like pushing a car uphill. The next $100,000 is like pushing it on flat ground. And the $100,000 after that, the car is rolling downhill. By the time you're approaching $1 million, you're not pushing at all. The car is accelerating on its own and you're just steering. Let me make this tangible with the analogy I think captures it best. Imagine you're planting an orchard. For the first several years, you're doing all the work, digging holes, planting saplings, watering, fertilizing, protecting against frost. The trees are small and they produce nothing. All the output comes from your labor. That's $0 to $100,000. You, your contributions, your savings, your discipline did almost all the work. But trees grow. And at some point, the orchard starts producing fruit. First a little, then more. Then the fruit from the older trees funds the planting of new trees, which produce their own fruit, which funds more trees. The orchard becomes self-sustaining. Your role shifts from laborer to orchard manager. You're still involved, but the orchard is generating most of its own growth. $100,000 is where the first fruit appears. $250,000 is where the orchard starts planting its own trees. And $500,000 is where you realize the orchard would keep growing even if you stopped working entirely. By $1 million, the orchard produces more fruit in a single year than you planted in the entire first decade. But here's where it gets really interesting. The psychology at $100,000 is critical because it determines whether you let the math work or whether you sabotage it. And there's a specific psychological trap at $100,000 that catches a surprising number of people. It's called the arrival fallacy, the belief that reaching a goal will make you feel the way you imagined. You spent years visualizing $100,000. You expected euphoria, relief, transformation, and instead you feel pretty much the same, maybe a little proud. But the number on the screen doesn't change your day-to-day experience as dramatically as you expected. And that disappointment, that gap between expectation and reality, is dangerous because it creates the thought, if $100,000 didn't change how I feel, maybe $1 million won't either. So why keep grinding? Here's the answer. $100,000 wasn't supposed to change how you feel. It was supposed to change how your money works. And it did. The change isn't emotional, it's mathematical. Your money is now generating returns at a scale that fundamentally alters the trajectory. The feelings will follow, but they follow the math, not the milestone. And the math at $100,000 is extraordinary. There's a second psychological shift that matters here, and it's the opposite of the arrival fallacy. It's what I call scale blindness, your brain's inability to intuitively grasp exponential growth. Human brains evolved to understand linear patterns. We can picture adding $1,000 every month for 10 years. That's $120,000, and our brain can hold that. But we cannot intuitively picture $100,000 compounding at 8% for 25 years, becoming $684,000 without any additional contributions. That number feels wrong. It feels too large. And because it feels wrong, your brain discounts it, which leads to underinvesting, premature withdrawals, and a general failure to trust the math. The fix for scale blindness is evidence. Run the calculations, see the projections, and watch your quarterly statements. Every time your returns exceed your contributions, which starts happening shortly after $100,000, your brain gets another data point that exponential growth is real, not theoretical, real, happening to you in your account. And eventually, the evidence overwhelms the disbelief. Let me show you. Let's use a consistent example. $800 per month in contributions at 8% average annual returns. This is a realistic contribution rate for someone who earned their way to $100,000. $0 to $100,000, approximately 7.5 years. During this stretch, your contributions totaled roughly $72,000, and your investment returns added about $28,000. You did 72% of the work. Your money did 28%, $100,000 to $200,000, approximately 5 years. During this stretch, your contributions totaled about $48,000, and your investment returns added about $52,000. For the first time, your money did more work than you did. $200,000 to $300,000, approximately 3.5 years. Contributions, $33,600. Returns, $66,400. Your money did twice as much as you did. $300,000 to $500,000, approximately 4.5 years. Contributions, $43,200. Returns, $156,800. Your money did nearly 4 times as much as you. $500,000 to $1 million, approximately 7 years. Contributions, $67,200. Returns, $432,800. Your money did more than 6 times as much as you. Total time from $0 to $1 million, approximately 27.5 years. But here's the stunning part. The first $100,000 took 7.5 years. The remaining $900,000 took 20 years. You built 9 times more wealth in less than 3 times more time. That's not linear, that's exponential. And the exponential curve was working against you at the beginning, slow, grinding, all your effort, and working for you at the end, fast, accelerating, mostly the money's effort. And this is the part most people miss. After $100,000, the most important thing you can do is nothing. Not nothing. As in stop contributing, keep contributing, but nothing. As in stop interfering. Stop checking your portfolio daily. Stop reacting to market dips. Stop trying to time the market or chase hot stocks. The math after $100,000 is a machine, and the machine works best when you don't touch it. The research on investor behavior from Dalbor consistently shows that the average investor underperforms the market by 2 to 4% per year. Not because they pick bad investments, but because they buy and sell at the wrong times, driven by emotion rather than math. On a portfolio growing from $100,000 to $1 million, a 3% annual behavioral penalty could cost you $300,000 to $400,000 in final value. The most expensive thing you can do after $100,000 isn't a bad investment. It's good investing interrupted by bad behavior. Like the identity of the person who turns $100,000 into $1 million isn't aggressive investor or market genius. It's patient capital allocator. Someone who contributes consistently, ignores noise, rebalances annually, and lets the exponential curve do what exponential curves do. That identity, the patient allocator, is the highest earning identity in all of personal finance, and it's available to anyone with $100,000 in the discipline to leave it alone. Here's what's beautiful about this identity. It gets easier to maintain over time, not harder. At $100,000, patience is difficult because the returns feel small. Relative to your contributions, you're doing most of the work and the money is barely helping. At $250,000, patience becomes natural because the returns are visible and meaningful. At $500,000, patience becomes rewarding because a single good year adds more to your portfolio than 2 years of contributions. And at $750,000, patience becomes effortless because the math is so clearly in your favor that interference feels obviously foolish. The habit you're building isn't resist the urge to touch it. The habit is trust the process. And that trust deepens with every quarterly statement that confirms the exponential curve is real and working. You are probably wondering what the practical difference feels like between $100,000 and the journey to $1 million. Let me walk you through the milestones because each one creates a tangible shift. At $150,000, your portfolio generates roughly $12,000 per year in returns. That's $1,000 per month. An invisible salary. If you lost your job, your portfolio would sustain you for a meaningful period even without withdrawing principal. The psychological effect of having a $1,000 per month invisible salary is profound. You walk through the world differently. Problems feel smaller. Opportunities feel more accessible. Risks feel more manageable. At $250,000, your returns are roughly $20,000 per year. That's enough to cover basic living expenses in many areas. You could theoretically survive on your portfolio's returns alone if you lived modestly. That's not the same as financial independence, but it's the first glimpse of what independence could look like. And that glimpse is motivating in a way that no amount of financial advice can replicate. At $500,000, your returns are approximately $40,000 per year, a full salary in many professions. Your money is earning what an entire human being earns. The psychological weight of that realization is immense. You're not just someone who saves. You've created a second worker, an invisible employee who generates income 24/7, never takes vacation, never calls in sick, and never asks for a raise. And that employee gets more productive every year. At $750,000, a single year of normal returns adds $60,000 to your portfolio. That's more than most people's annual salary. You're adding a year's salary in a year without lifting a finger. The compounding curve has reached the steep section, and the acceleration is visible in every quarterly statement. And at $1 million, the math reaches its final form. At 8%, your portfolio generates $80,000 per year. That's $6,667 per month. Your contributions, the $800 per month you've been faithfully adding, now represent less than 11% of your portfolio's annual growth. The money is doing almost all the work. The orchard is fully grown, and you planted it. Now let me show you how this changes your career. At $100,000, you have walk-away money. You can survive a job loss. At $250,000, you have walk-away and wait money. You can leave a bad situation and take 6 months to find the perfect next role. At $500,000, you have career reinvention money. You can take a year off, retrain, start a business, or pursue a passion project. And at $750,000 to $1 million, you have optional work money. You work because you want to, not because you have to. Each of these stages changes how you negotiate, how you perform, and how you're perceived. The $500,000 investor doesn't accept the first salary offer because they can afford to say no. The $750,000 investor doesn't stay in a toxic workplace because they don't need the paycheck. And the career moves they make from these positions of strength, the better jobs, the higher salaries, the strategic risks, accelerate the portfolio growth even further. Wealth builds confidence. Confidence builds career outcomes. And career outcomes build more wealth. The flywheel spins faster with every rotation. Now, I have to warn you about the two things that can derail this math. The first is lifestyle inflation that matches portfolio growth. Your portfolio crosses $250,000 and you think, I can afford the nicer car now. You finance $40,000, and that $40,000, if left invested, would have become approximately $172,000 in 20 years. The car depreciates to $12,000 in the same period. You traded $172,000 for something worth $12,000. That's not a purchase. That's a financial decision with a $160,000 cost. And it barely even registers as a mistake because you can afford it. The rule after $100,000 is simple. Your lifestyle should grow slower than your portfolio. Not frozen. That's unsustainable, but slower. If your portfolio grows 10% this year, your lifestyle can grow 2 to 3%. The gap between portfolio growth and lifestyle growth is the fuel for the exponential curve. Close the gap and the curve flattens. Protect the gap and the curve steepens. The second derailment is overconfidence. $100,000 in investments can make you feel like you know what you're doing, and that feeling can lead to concentrated bets, individual stock picks, speculative investments, and crypto positions that are far riskier than your index fund portfolio. The data is unambiguous. Over any 20-year period, a diversified index fund beats the vast majority of professional fund managers. Your edge isn't stock selection. Your edge is time, consistency, and the exponential math that rewards both. Don't trade your edge for a gamble. So here's where I want to leave you. The hardest part of building $1 million is the first $100,000. It's the slowest stretch, the most grinding, the most thankless. The period where your contributions are doing almost all the work and the returns feel negligible. And you did it, or you're doing it, or you're about to start. But the rest of the journey, the $900,000 between $100,000 and $1 million, is a different experience entirely. It's faster. It's easier. It's driven increasingly by the math rather than by your effort. Each milestone arrives sooner than the last. Each year, your money contributes a larger share. And by the end, you'll look back and realize that the 7.5 years it took to build the first $100,000 were the most valuable years of the entire journey. Not because of the money they produced, but because of the habits, the discipline, and the patience they installed. Those habits are the engine. The $100,000 was just proof the engine works. Now, let the engine run. Keep contributing. Keep ignoring the noise. Keep letting the exponential curve do its work. And watch the math turn $100,000 into $1 million. Not because you're extraordinary, but because compound interest is. The orchard is planted. The trees are growing. All you have to do is let them.